Heavenly Stories.
Picture this, a bustling city called Babylon, full of towering ziggurats, noisy markets, and folks from every corner of the empire. It's a long way from Jerusalem, where a guy named Daniel grew up. Daniel wasn't just any guy, he was a Hebrew, taken captive when King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon conquered his homeland. But instead of letting exile break him, Daniel leaned hard into his faith. He was smart, hard-working, and had a knack for interpreting dreams, which made him stand out. Over time, he climbed the ranks, becoming one of the top administrators in the kingdom under a new king, Darius the Mede. Now, Darius was a practical guy. He split his empire into 120 regions, each run by a governor, and put 3 big shots over them all to keep things in check. Daniel was one of those 3, and let me tell ya, he was the best of the bunch. His work was flawless, his integrity rock solid. The guy didn't cut corners or take bribes, which was rare in a place like Babylon, where power games were the name of the day. People noticed. Darius noticed. He started thinking, hey, maybe Daniel should run the whole show. But success like that? It breeds envy. The other administrators and governors weren't thrilled about Daniel stealing the spotlight. They whispered to each other, who does this Hebrew think he is? We've got to take him down. Trouble was, Daniel was squeaky clean. They couldn't dig up any dirt, no shady deals, no scandals. Finally, they realized the only way to trap him was through his faith. See, Daniel prayed to his God 3 times a day, every day, no matter what. In Babylon, where folks worshipped a whole pantheon of gods, that kind of devotion to one god stood out. And these schemers saw their chance. They hatched a plan, slick as anything. They'd get King Darius to sign a law that would make Daniel's prayers illegal. If they could pull it off, they'd have him right where they wanted him. But Daniel? He wasn't the type to back down. His faith wasn't just a habit, it was who he was. As the plot thickened, Daniel kept praying, same as always, trusting God to handle whatever came next. So, these jealous officials knew they had to play their cards just right. They went to King Darius with a plan so sneaky it could have come straight out of a political thriller. They stroked his ego, saying, "O great King Darius, live forever. You're the mightiest ruler this empire's ever seen. We've got an idea to make sure everyone stays loyal to you." Darius, flattered and maybe a bit distracted, leaned in. They pitched a decree: for 30 days, nobody in the kingdom could pray to any god or man except Darius himself. Anyone who broke the rule, they'd be thrown into a pit of hungry lions. Now, this was Babylon, where laws were sealed with the king's signet ring. Once signed, they couldn't be changed, not even by Darius. The officials knew this, and they were counting on it. Darius thought the decree sounded like a solid way to unify the kingdom, so he signed it without a second thought. The trap was set, and Daniel was the target. Word of the new law spread fast. Most folks shrugged it off, praying to the king for a month wasn't a big deal. But for Daniel, it was a direct challenge to his faith. He worshipped the God of Israel, the one true God, and no human king was gonna change that. Every day, like clockwork, Daniel went to his upstairs room, opened the windows toward Jerusalem, and prayed. He didn't hide it, didn't whisper, didn't compromise. He knelt, gave thanks, and asked for God's guidance, just like always. The schemers were watching. They'd posted lookouts near Daniel's house, waiting for him to slip up. Sure enough, they caught him praying, not once, but 3 times a day. They ran back to Darius, barely hiding their glee. "Your Majesty," they said, "we've got a problem. That Hebrew, Daniel, he's breaking your decree. He's praying to his God, not you. The law's clear, into the lion's den he goes." Darius's stomach dropped. He liked Daniel, trusted him, maybe even saw him as a friend. The last thing he wanted was to lose his best advisor. But the law was ironclad, and these guys had him cornered. He spent the whole day trying to find a loophole, some way to save Daniel, but the officials kept pressing. "The law's the law, Your Majesty. You signed it." As the sun set, Darius had no choice. With a heavy heart, he gave the order, Daniel would face the lions. The moment came, and it was grim. Darius's guards hauled Daniel to the lion's den, a deep, stone pit where the king kept his fiercest beasts. These weren't your average zoo lions. They were half-starved, pacing, and ready to tear into anything that moved. The den was sealed with a heavy stone, and Darius stamped it with his royal seal to make sure nobody could sneak in and help Daniel. As they lowered him in, the king called out, "Daniel, may your God, whom you serve so faithfully, save you." It was half a prayer, half a plea, but Darius wasn't holding his breath. Daniel hit the floor of the den, the air thick with the smell of damp stone and animal musk. The lions growled, their eyes glinting in the dark. Most folks would have panicked, but Daniel? He was calm. His whole life, he'd trusted God through exile, through trials, through fire. This was just another test. He didn't scream or beg. Maybe he prayed, maybe he just stood there, steady as a rock, trusting God had a plan. Back at the palace, Darius was a wreck. He couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. No music, no feasts, nothing could distract him. He kept picturing Daniel down there, torn to pieces. The guy who'd served him so loyally was now facing death because of a law Darius had been dumb enough to sign. He tossed and turned all night, replaying the moment he'd let those schemers trick him. "What have I done?" he muttered, staring at the ceiling. Meanwhile, the officials who'd set this up were probably toasting their success. They thought they'd won, that Daniel was history, and their path to power was clear. But they didn't know Daniel's God. See, the God of Israel wasn't just some local deity. He was the Creator, the one who'd parted seas and toppled giants. If he could handle those, a few hungry lions weren't gonna be a problem. Down in the den, something incredible was happening. The lions, pacing and snarling at first, didn't attack. It was like an invisible hand held them back. They circled Daniel, maybe sniffed him, but they didn't touch him. Hour after hour, through the long night, Daniel stood unharmed. His faith wasn't just talk, it was real, and God was showing up in a big way. As soon as the first light of dawn broke, Darius was out of bed, racing to the lion's den. He didn't even bother with his usual royal entourage, just grabbed a few guards and ran. His heart was pounding, half hoping, half dreading what he'd find. When he got to the den, he shouted, "Daniel, servant of the living God. Is your God, whom you serve so faithfully, able to save you from the lions?" His voice cracked, like he wasn't sure he wanted to hear the answer. Then, from the depths of the pit, came a voice, clear, calm, and very much alive. "O King, live forever." Daniel called back. "My God sent his angel to shut the lions' mouths. They haven't hurt me, because I was found innocent in his sight. And I've done no wrong to you, Your Majesty." Darius's jaw dropped. Relief washed over him like a tidal wave. He ordered the guards to roll away the stone and haul Daniel out, pronto. When Daniel stepped into the sunlight, not a scratch was on him. No bite marks, no claw wounds, nothing. The guy looked like he'd just taken a stroll, not spent a night with a pack of starving lions. Darius was over the moon, but he was also starting to connect the dots. Daniel's God wasn't just powerful, he was real, and he'd just pulled off a miracle nobody could deny. The king's joy quickly turned to anger when he thought about the guys who'd set this whole thing up. He summoned those scheming officials and governors, the ones who'd been so eager to throw Daniel to the lions. Darius wasn't playing around anymore. He ordered them, their families, and anyone else involved in the plot to be thrown into the same den. Before they even hit the bottom, the lions were on them, tearing them apart. It was brutal, but it sent a message: messing with God's faithful wasn't gonna end well. Darius had seen enough. He realized Daniel's God wasn't just some foreign deity, he was the real deal. The king started thinking about what this meant, not just for Daniel, but for the whole kingdom. Something big was about to change in Babylon, and it all started with one man's unshakable faith. Darius wasn't the same after that morning. He'd seen a miracle with his own eyes, and it shook him to his core. This wasn't just about saving Daniel, it was about a God who could control nature, shut lions' mouths, and protect his people against all odds. Darius sat down and wrote a decree, one that would go out to every corner of his massive empire. He wanted everyone to know what had happened and who was really in charge. The decree went something like this: to all peoples, nations, and languages throughout the earth, peace be with you. I'm making it official, everyone in my kingdom is to fear and respect the God of Daniel. He's the living God, eternal, and his kingdom will never be destroyed. He delivers and rescues, works signs and wonders in heaven and on earth. He saved Daniel from the lions. This wasn't just a memo, it was a game changer. Darius, a pagan king, was telling his whole empire to honor the God of Israel. That's how big this moment was. Daniel, meanwhile, went right back to work, same as before. He didn't gloat, didn't rub it in anyone's face. He just kept serving the king and his God with the same quiet strength. His faith hadn't just saved his life, it had turned the heart of a king and shifted the spiritual tide of an empire. People started talking, not just about Daniel, but about this God who could do the impossible. In a land full of idols, Daniel's story was a beacon, pointing to the one true God. The officials who tried to take him down, they were gone, and their plan had backfired spectacularly. Instead of destroying Daniel, they'd given him a platform to show the world what faith could do. Babylon wasn't exactly turning into Jerusalem overnight, but something was stirring. People were curious, asking questions, wondering if this God of Daniel was worth knowing. For Daniel, it was just another chapter in a life of trusting God. He'd faced exile, fiery furnaces, and now lions, and every time, God came through. His story wasn't about him, it was about a God who never fails, no matter how dark the night or how fierce the enemy. Daniel's story didn't just end with him walking out of that den. It echoed through the ages, a testament to what happens when someone stands firm in their faith. In Babylon, Daniel became a living legend. People didn't just see a guy who survived lions, they saw a God who could do anything. His courage inspired others, from the lowliest servants to the highest officials. Even King Darius, who'd started out worshipping a pantheon of gods, couldn't deny the power of Daniel's God. That decree he sent out, it wasn't just words on a scroll. It planted seeds, challenging people to think about who they worshipped and why. Daniel kept serving in the king's court, and the Bible says he prospered under Darius and later under Cyrus, the next king. He didn't let the lion's den define him, it was just one more moment where God showed up. His life was a pattern: trust God, obey him, and watch him work. Whether it was interpreting dreams, giving wise counsel, or facing death, Daniel lived like God was bigger than any problem. And that's what made his story stick. Centuries later, folks still tell this story, to kids in Sunday school, to congregations in churches, to anyone needing a reminder that faith can move mountains. It's not just about lions or ancient kings. It's about facing your own dens, those moments when the odds are stacked against you, and the world says give up. Daniel's story says, hold on. Trust God. He's got this. For us today, it's a gut check. What's our lion's den? Maybe it's standing up for what's right when everyone else is cutting corners. Maybe it's trusting God through a crisis when there's no clear way out. Daniel didn't have a guarantee he'd walk out of that pit, but he knew his God was faithful. That's the kind of faith that changes things, not just for one person, but for everyone around them. So, next time you're facing something that feels impossible, think of Daniel. Picture him standing in that den, lions circling, and God holding them back. It's not just a story, it's a promise. The God who saved Daniel is the same God who's with you, ready to shut the mouths of whatever lions you're facing. All you gotta do is trust him and keep praying, just like Daniel did.